Hello friends. Today we dive into a subject that might sound a little harsh at first, but is incredibly important for our growth, recognizing the signs of foolishness in ourselves and others. It's a topic that's deeply relevant in the modern world, where we are constantly bombarded with distractions, emotions and opinions. But instead of diving into some vague philosophical rhetoric, let's talk about something practical: how to identify traits of a person who may not be acting with wisdom, intelligence, or maturity. We've all heard the saying, stupidity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. But how often do we stop to reflect on our own actions, beliefs, or reactions? How often do we look around and assess the behavior of those around us? The modern world is full of noise: social media, politics, the endless pursuit of wealth, and the constant pressure to conform. In this environment, we may find ourselves surrounded by individuals who exhibit characteristics of ignorance or stubbornness, people who might not be living with true wisdom. Now, I want to be clear that I'm not here to point fingers or call out individuals based on personal biases. But through the lens of Stoicism, we can apply critical thinking to observe behaviors and traits that show how certain attitudes can limit growth, hinder self-awareness, and even undermine relationships. We all have our flaws and we all make mistakes. However, in the pursuit of wisdom, it's crucial to identify patterns of foolishness that, when left unchecked, can hold us back from becoming the best version of ourselves. With that in mind, let's discuss 6 signs of a foolish person, someone who might be living in ignorance or failing to apply wisdom to their life. The beauty of Stoicism is that it offers timeless tools and principles that help us not only recognize foolishness, but also overcome it in ourselves. The first sign of foolishness is a lack of self-awareness. The Stoics emphasize that true wisdom begins with self-reflection. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most revered Stoic philosophers, often wrote in his journals, asking himself difficult questions about his thoughts, actions, and emotions. A wise person is always seeking to understand themselves better, recognizing their weaknesses, and striving to improve. However, a foolish person may be completely oblivious to their own flaws. They may continue to make the same mistakes, hurt others without realizing it, and act without considering the consequences. A lack of self-awareness is dangerous because it prevents growth. When you don't understand yourself, you cannot improve. And if you cannot improve, you're stuck in a cycle of ignorance. The second sign of a foolish person is the inability to learn from mistakes. All of us make mistakes, and this is a natural part of being human. In fact, Stoicism teaches us to embrace mistakes as opportunities for growth. However, a foolish person is one who repeats their mistakes over and over without learning from them. They might ignore the lessons life is trying to teach them, becoming stubborn and resistant to change. Instead of accepting responsibility for their actions, they blame others or external circumstances for their failures. Learning from mistakes requires humility, and those who fail to learn are doomed to keep making the same errors. A wise person, however, reflects, adapts, and strives not to repeat the past. The third sign is being overly emotional. Emotions, as we know, are a powerful force in our lives. But Stoicism teaches us that emotions should not control us. A foolish person, however, is one who allows emotions to dominate their thoughts and actions. Whether it's anger, fear, jealousy, or frustration, they react impulsively without considering the long-term consequences. Emotions are natural, but letting them dictate your actions can lead to irrational decisions. Stoics like Seneca and Epictetus advised us to be in control of our emotions, not the other way around. Emotional reactions might provide short-term relief, but they often lead to regret. Wisdom comes from understanding and managing emotions, not suppressing them or letting them take over. Fourth on our list is a lack of critical thinking. In today's world, it's so easy to be swayed by popular opinions, viral trends, or the latest headlines. However, a foolish person is one who does not engage in critical thinking, who follows the crowd without questioning why or how. They believe things simply because others believe them, never taking the time to examine evidence or think deeply about their beliefs. Stoicism calls for the application of reason, for questioning the status quo, and for making decisions based on logic, not on external pressures or fleeting emotions. Critical thinking is essential for making informed decisions and understanding the world around us. Without it, we become passive consumers of information instead of active participants in shaping our own lives. The fifth sign is resisting change. One of the core principles of Stoicism is accepting change. The Stoics understood that change is inevitable, whether it's the changing seasons, the passing of time, or shifts in our personal circumstances. A wise person embraces change because they recognize that it is a part of life. A foolish person, however, resists change at every turn. They cling to outdated beliefs, old ways of thinking, and comfort zones because they fear the unknown. This resistance to change leads to stagnation. The world is constantly evolving, and those who refuse to adapt are left behind. To be wise is to be flexible, to see change as an opportunity for growth, not something to fear. Finally, the sixth sign of a foolish person is a lack of empathy. Wisdom isn't just about being smart or knowledgeable. It's about understanding others, showing compassion, and recognizing the humanity in everyone. A foolish person, however, might be self-centered, always focused on their own needs and desires without considering the feelings or perspectives of others. They might be dismissive of others' struggles or challenges, or worse, they might exploit others for personal gain. Stoicism teaches us to treat others with kindness and respect, to empathize with their suffering, and to act in ways that contribute to the common good. A lack of empathy not only harms others, but also limits our ability to build meaningful connections and create a positive impact in the world. Now, these 6 signs of foolishness might seem obvious in some ways, but in today's fast-paced, distraction-filled world, they can often be hard to spot. We live in an era of instant gratification, where people often seek shortcuts and easy answers. We also live in a time where self-reflection is often overlooked, and where the pursuit of success can overshadow the pursuit of wisdom. In this environment, the traits of foolishness can sometimes masquerade as strength, confidence, or independence, but deep down they are just signs of immaturity and ignorance. If we look at these 6 traits through the lens of Stoicism, we can see how they all stem from one central flaw: a lack of control over one's mind. Stoicism teaches us that we cannot control external events, but we can control how we respond to them. The foolish person is someone who lets external factors, emotions, opinions, past mistakes control their mind and actions. The wise person, on the other hand, learns to control their mind, to reflect, to embrace change, to manage emotions, and to live with empathy. So, how do we move forward? The good news is that none of us are stuck in a permanent state of foolishness. Wisdom is not a fixed trait, it's a practice. The Stoics believed in the power of daily practice, of constantly striving to improve, to reflect, and to act with virtue. So if you recognize any of these signs of foolishness in yourself, don't despair. Use them as a guide to self-improvement. Recognize the areas where you can grow and take action to cultivate wisdom. To conclude, the journey to wisdom is a lifelong one. It's not easy, and it's not always straightforward. But as the Stoics remind us, it's within our control to change, to grow, and to become the best version of ourselves. So, the next time you encounter someone displaying these signs of foolishness, instead of judging them, take a moment to reflect on how you can apply the principles of Stoicism to overcome these traits in your own life. The path to wisdom is open to all of us. It begins with a single step: an honest, courageous look at ourselves and the world around us. Let's commit to being mindful of the signs of foolishness and dedicate ourselves to the pursuit of wisdom, one small action at a time. Certainly, here's an extended version of the speech on 6 signs of a stupid person within the framework of modern Stoicism. This version adds deeper exploration and elaboration on each point to give you a much longer speech. We live in a world of constant noise. It feels as though every day we are bombarded by a cacophony of distractions, headlines, advertisements, opinions, and the ever-encroaching presence of social media. Amidst this whirlwind, it can sometimes be difficult to hear our own thoughts, let alone have the space to reflect deeply on our own behavior. As we navigate this world, one of the greatest challenges we face is recognizing not only the flaws in others but also in ourselves. Now, the subject that we are diving into today might be a bit uncomfortable, but it's essential to have these hard-hitting conversations for personal growth. We are going to talk about something very fundamental, the traits of a foolish person, or in some cases, what might be seen as stupidity. But I urge you to not look at this from a place of judgment, but from a place of reflection. The traits we're going to discuss are not merely about identifying those who seem to lack intelligence in the conventional sense. They are about observing how certain behaviors, whether within ourselves or others, can limit growth, hinder wisdom, and impede progress in life. In the teachings of Stoicism, wisdom is the highest virtue. To be wise is to possess an understanding of how the world works and how we fit into that world. It is to know what is within our control and what is beyond it. To be wise is to live with intentionality, to make decisions not based on impulse or blind emotions, but based on reason and virtue. Today we're going to unpack 6 signs of foolishness from the perspective of Stoicism that we should watch out for in our daily lives. I want to remind you that Stoicism doesn't preach judgment of others, rather, it asks us to focus on our own personal development. When we talk about these signs of foolishness, we are also talking about traits we all have the potential to exhibit. But it's only when we recognize them that we can begin to do something about them. The first sign of a foolish person is a lack of self-awareness. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most revered Stoics, often reflected on his own actions in his personal journal, examining the nature of his thoughts and deeds. Self-awareness is the first step in any process of growth. Without it, we are like ships sailing without a compass, drifting aimlessly, reacting to circumstances instead of steering our course. A foolish person, however, fails to recognize their own patterns. They might go through life making the same mistakes, repeating behaviors that hurt them and others, all the while being completely unaware. When they hurt someone's feelings, they don't stop to consider the impact of their words or actions. They might justify their behavior, blaming circumstances or others instead of reflecting on their own shortcomings. In Stoicism, this is known as being out of touch with our inner nature, the essence of who we are and what we stand for. Without self-awareness, it's impossible to improve. We may deceive ourselves into thinking we're fine, but in reality, we are on autopilot, moving through life without true introspection. The second sign of foolishness is the inability to learn from mistakes. I'm sure we've all encountered people who repeat the same errors over and over again, as if they never learned from the first time. In Stoicism, the process of self-improvement is rooted in understanding that mistakes are not failures, they are lessons. Every mistake is a gift, an opportunity to reflect, grow, and move forward with greater wisdom. But a foolish person doesn't learn from their mistakes. They stay in a perpetual cycle of self-sabotage. Take, for example, someone who always blames others for their failures. A foolish person might say, if it weren't for this person or that situation, I would have succeeded. But the wise person asks, what could I have done differently? What did I contribute to this situation? Failure is a part of life, but it is not a reflection of our ultimate worth. It's a stepping stone toward wisdom. Those who fail to learn from their mistakes trap themselves in the past, perpetuating patterns of poor decision-making. Stoicism teaches us to accept mistakes with grace and humility, and to view them as opportunities to refine our understanding and become better. The third sign of foolishness is being overly emotional. Emotions are part of the human experience, but they are not our masters. To be emotional is not inherently foolish, it's how we allow our emotions to control us that leads to poor judgment. A foolish person lets emotions drive their decisions, and they react impulsively without thinking of the consequences. The Stoics understood that emotions could cloud judgment. They didn't advocate for suppressing feelings, but for understanding them and managing them with reason. Consider someone who gets angry at the slightest provocation. They might lash out, saying things they later regret, without pausing to think. In the heat of the moment, the emotions rule, and logic takes a back seat. In contrast, the Stoic approach would be to pause, reflect, and allow reason to guide our actions, even when emotions are running high. Emotional reactions might give us immediate satisfaction, but they rarely lead to long-term fulfillment or harmony. Wisdom lies in recognizing our emotional responses, understanding them, and choosing how to act based on reason, not out of impulsive reaction. The fourth sign is a lack of critical thinking. We live in an era where opinions are rampant, and everyone seems to have an answer for everything. Yet, the foolish person is one who simply accepts things at face value without questioning them. They believe in something just because it's popular or because it's what they've always been told. Critical thinking is the foundation of wisdom. It requires us to question, to seek understanding, and to challenge assumptions. In today's world, we are often fed information that's designed to make us act in certain ways. Buy this product, vote for this politician, believe this theory. But the wise person asks, what's the evidence? How does this align with my values? Is this really true, or is it a manipulation? Critical thinking involves not just absorbing information, but analyzing it. It's about developing the ability to separate truth from falsehood, to distinguish fact from opinion, and to engage deeply with the world around us. The fifth sign is resisting change. Change is inevitable. We know this, yet many of us resist it out of fear or stubbornness. A foolish person refuses to embrace change, sticking rigidly to old habits, outdated beliefs, and past behaviors. But wisdom is found in our ability to adapt, to grow, and to evolve in response to new circumstances. The Stoics knew this well. They understood that life is in a constant state of flux, and only those who are flexible in their mindset can navigate it with grace. Resisting change is akin to swimming against the current. It's exhausting and futile. Whether it's personal growth, shifting relationships, or changes in the broader world, the wise person adapts. They don't fight change, but embrace it as part of the natural order. Change is not something to fear. It's an opportunity to evolve, to learn, and to become better. Finally, the sixth sign of a foolish person is a lack of empathy. Wisdom isn't just about intellectual understanding. It's about emotional intelligence and the ability to connect with others. A foolish person lacks empathy. They don't consider how their actions impact others or fail to understand the pain and struggles of those around them. They are wrapped up in their own world, oblivious to the suffering of others. In Stoicism, the concept of the common good is vital. We are all interconnected, and our actions affect others, whether we realize it or not. The wise person recognizes the humanity in everyone they meet. They practice kindness, compassion, and understanding, not just for those they agree with, but for all people. They understand that empathy strengthens relationships and that we are all in this together. The foolish person, on the other hand, is self-centered and blind to the emotions and experiences of others. Now I want you to reflect deeply on these 6 signs of foolishness: a lack of self-awareness, the inability to learn from mistakes, being overly emotional, a lack of critical thinking, resisting change, and a lack of empathy. These are not just traits to watch out for in others, they are characteristics that can emerge in ourselves if we are not mindful. But here's the beauty of Stoicism: none of these signs are permanent. They are not fixed states. Wisdom is a practice. It is something we can cultivate every single day. As long as we are alive, we have the opportunity to improve, to reflect, and to grow. So if you notice these signs in yourself, do not despair. Use them as a mirror to examine your life, to ask yourself, what can I change? How can I grow? Remember, Stoicism teaches us to focus on what is within our control. We cannot change the world around us or the behavior of others, but we can control our responses, our actions, and our growth. The pursuit of wisdom is a lifelong journey, and it begins with the recognition of our own flaws and the commitment to overcoming them. To conclude, I'll leave you with this powerful thought: wisdom doesn't come from reading books or attending lectures. Wisdom comes from living, from being fully present in the world, and from recognizing our capacity to grow and change. We can all be better today than we were yesterday. It's not an easy path, but it is a worthy one. So let us strive to be wise, to be self-aware, to learn from our mistakes, to control our emotions, to think critically, to embrace change, and to be empathetic. The road to wisdom begins with the choice to walk it. And it is a journey worth taking. Absolutely. Here's a much longer version of the speech, further expanded to meet your requirements for length and depth. It dives deeper into each point, reflecting on Stoicism and its application in the modern world, while expanding on each of the 6 signs of a foolish person. This version includes more insights, examples, and philosophical reflections. I'm truly grateful to be here with you today to talk about something that might make us uncomfortable but is critical for growth, recognizing the signs of a foolish person, particularly through the lens of modern Stoicism. It's not a subject that many people feel comfortable discussing. After all, no one wants to be called foolish or stupid. But it's important to approach this topic not from a place of condemnation, but from a space of reflection. When we reflect on the behaviors of others, we must also examine ourselves, because the traits we will discuss today are not reserved for anyone else. They live in all of us, and the key is to recognize them and work toward improvement. In today's world, it's easier than ever to be distracted, to live without thought or reflection. We find ourselves surrounded by noise, news stories, opinions on social media, pressures to conform to certain ideals. And in this world of distraction, self-awareness and wisdom are harder than ever to cultivate. It's easy to lose ourselves in the rush of information, opinions, and emotions. But the great Stoic philosophers Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus, and others remind us that wisdom is a practice, one that requires constant effort and introspection. It's not something we are born with, but something we develop through disciplined thought and action. So today I want to talk about 6 clear signs of foolishness. By examining these, we're not just looking at the traits of others, we're also giving ourselves the chance to reflect on our own actions and tendencies. The signs I'll share are rooted in Stoic thought, and as we explore each one, I'll tie it back to practical applications in our daily lives. The first sign of a foolish person is a lack of self-awareness. The Stoics emphasize the importance of introspection. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, would reflect on his own thoughts, behaviors, and emotions, seeking to understand where he had acted in accordance with virtue and where he had failed. He didn't do this to criticize himself harshly, but rather to learn. True wisdom begins with self-awareness. It's about understanding who you are, recognizing your flaws, acknowledging your strengths, and seeing where you are in the journey of life. A person who lacks self-awareness is blind to their own shortcomings. They might constantly make the same mistakes and fail to see the patterns that lead to their failure. They may hurt others with their words or actions, but fail to see how they contribute to their own suffering. Instead of taking responsibility for their behavior, they project blame onto others or external circumstances. It's easy to point fingers at the world around us, but the wise person looks inward, reflecting on how their own actions and choices shape their reality. In modern society, we are often taught to focus on the external, how we look, what we own, how successful we appear to others. But this obsession with external validation often comes at the cost of introspection. Social media, for example, is an arena where many present their best selves, often ignoring the parts of themselves that need attention. A lack of self-awareness in today's world leads us to live on autopilot, reacting to external stimuli rather than engaging in thoughtful reflection. The second sign of foolishness is the inability to learn from mistakes. We all make mistakes, and Stoicism teaches us that this is natural. Epictetus, a prominent Stoic philosopher, encouraged his students to not fear mistakes but to learn from them. He believed that mistakes, like everything in life, are opportunities for growth. A person who fails to learn from their mistakes is trapped in a cycle of ignorance. They continue making the same choices, unaware of how their decisions lead to suffering. Instead of using mistakes as a stepping stone for improvement, they become entrenched in denial or blame. Take, for example, someone who repeatedly makes bad financial decisions. They might impulsively buy things they don't need or neglect to save money, all while blaming bad luck or the economy for their lack of financial success. A Stoic would instead ask, what is within my control? What decisions can I make differently moving forward? A wise person acknowledges their mistakes, learns from them, and adjusts their behavior accordingly. This inability to learn from mistakes is prevalent in many aspects of modern life, from personal relationships to professional pursuits. In a world where success is often equated with never failing, we forget that true wisdom is rooted in the ability to learn from failure. By recognizing our mistakes and making the necessary changes, we set ourselves on the path to true success, not the success defined by others, but the one we define for ourselves. The third sign of foolishness is being overly emotional. Stoicism does not advocate for the suppression of emotions, but for understanding and managing them. Emotions are a part of being human, but when we allow them to control us, they can cloud our judgment and lead to destructive actions. A foolish person reacts impulsively to their emotions without pausing to think about the consequences. They let anger, jealousy, frustration, or fear drive their actions, often leading to regret later. Imagine a person who, in a moment of anger, says hurtful things to a loved one. The emotional rush feels satisfying in the moment, but afterward the regret and guilt set in. This cycle repeats itself when the person doesn't take the time to reflect on their emotions and learn to control them. Stoicism teaches us that it's not our emotions that are the problem, but how we react to them. A wise person understands their emotions, acknowledges them, and uses reason to decide how to respond rather than being swept away by the tide of their feelings. In today's world, it's easy to be swept up by emotions. Political debates, social media arguments, personal frustrations, these can trigger strong emotional reactions. Yet, responding in anger or fear often only escalates the situation. The wise person takes a step back, observes their emotions without being controlled by them, and responds thoughtfully. The fourth sign is a lack of critical thinking. In the age of information, it's more important than ever to engage in critical thinking. We live in a time when opinions are everywhere, on social media, in the news, among our friends and family. But a foolish person is someone who accepts things at face value without questioning them. They follow the crowd, repeat what others say, and never stop to examine whether the information is accurate, whether the beliefs they hold are true, or whether their actions align with their values. Critical thinking is essential for making informed decisions. It requires us to question assumptions, to analyze evidence, and to seek the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. The Stoics, particularly Epictetus, encouraged their students to develop a habit of questioning their own beliefs and biases. This practice of self-examination is crucial for growth. The foolish person, on the other hand, merely absorbs information without processing it. They are passive recipients of the world's opinions rather than active participants in shaping their own beliefs. In today's world, we are bombarded with information that often serves to reinforce our existing beliefs rather than challenge them. Social media algorithms, for instance, are designed to show us content that aligns with our views, making it easy to fall into echo chambers. Critical thinking helps us break out of these bubbles and forces us to engage with different perspectives, think deeply, and make well-informed choices. The fifth sign of foolishness is resisting change. The Stoics understood that change is the only constant in life. Everything around us is in a state of flux. People change, circumstances change, the world changes. Yet a foolish person resists change, clinging to outdated beliefs, old habits, and past experiences. They fear the unknown, preferring the comfort of the familiar, even if that familiarity is holding them back. A wise person, however, embraces change as an opportunity for growth. They understand that nothing in life stays the same and that adaptability is a key to resilience. Change is not something to fear, it's something to embrace. This doesn't mean we accept change passively, but rather we take proactive steps to adjust to new circumstances. We use our wisdom to navigate change with clarity and purpose. In the modern world, we see resistance to change in many forms, whether it's people refusing to adapt to new technology, to changing societal norms, or even to personal growth. The Stoic view on change teaches us to see it as an essential part of life, one that provides endless opportunities for learning and self-improvement. Finally, the sixth sign of foolishness is a lack of empathy. Wisdom is not just about intellectual understanding, it's about emotional intelligence. A foolish person is often self-centered, focused only on their own needs and desires. They may fail to recognize the struggles of others or dismiss the feelings of those around them. Empathy, however, allows us to understand and connect with others. It's the ability to see things from someone else's perspective and to act with kindness, compassion, and understanding. The Stoics emphasized the importance of treating others with dignity and respect. Marcus Aurelius often wrote about the interconnectedness of all people, reminding himself that we are all part of the same human family. A wise person recognizes that their actions affect others and strives to contribute positively to the world around them. A lack of empathy leads to isolation, conflict, and misunderstanding. When we fail to understand the experiences of others, we limit